On today's special episode of Homeworthy, we're bringing you to the picturesque landscapes of Connecticut, where we step inside 3 extraordinary homes, each with its own unique story and style. First, we visit the enchanting country retreat of interior designer Philip Gorrivan. A true collector at heart, Philip's home is layered with rich textures, storied antiques, and a thoughtfully curated mix of art and objects. Next, we'll visit the warm and welcoming home of chef and content creator Kat Ashmore. A professionally trained chef with a background at Martha Stewart, Kat's kitchen is the heart of her home, where tradition meets creativity. Finally, we step inside the exquisite home of interior designer Caroline Kopp. Building her family's first home from the ground up, Caroline has created a space that's both sophisticated and inviting. It's completed with dreamy blue hues, French-inspired charm, and a primary bedroom that feels like a sanctuary. You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi, Homeworthy. Welcome to my home. I'm Philip Gorrivan. We're in Washington, Connecticut. Come on in.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
I'm interior designer Philip Gorrivan. I do interior design, focus mostly on residential, although I do hospitality as well, restaurants here and there. I have a wallpaper company. I also do fabrics and lighting and things like that. We're in Washington, Connecticut, which is in the northwest corner of Connecticut. We're not too far from the Berkshires. I would say we're in it's called the foothills of the Berkshire Mountains. So we're in a fairly high elevation, I'd say my house here is about 1,000 feet above sea level. And we're also very close to the New York border, Hudson River Valley. It's a really special area. New Yorkers have been coming up here as an option to, going to the beach or going to Newport, the Hamptons and so forth. And it's a pretty established country area retreat. Welcome to my porch. I think this is probably my favorite space in the house. We have parties here, we have friends over for cocktails. The thing I love about it, it's like a layered space. I wanted the porch to feel like it was an extension of my house, but still obviously acknowledge that it's outdoors as well. All the furniture is, most of the things here are reclaimed, they're antique. I had them restored. This is all indoor-outdoor fabric, so it may look like it's interior fabric, but it's out here all the time and to withstand the elements. This is a little table I picked up recently at an auction. Occasionally I'm always swapping things out, and I think that's what interior design is. You're always looking, you always can find something that might be, a better fit than what you had before. So this is a little dining area as well. I would say this is where we have most of our meals when it's warm out in the summer months. This is a ficus tree that I've had. It's growing like a weed. I love plants. Thankfully, I have a place to winter them over. Otherwise, I don't know what I would do. I would have no room in the house for all these things. But again, I think the secret to having a comfortable space like this is to have lots of plants and living things, and also just like little things that I think add a little bit of narrative. I love groupings, and I think groupings are essential to creating a space. Whether it's a grouping of these little rattan heads, or it could be again a grouping of plants or whatever it is. But you'll see there are lots of groupings ahead. This was one house that I used to go by all the time, and it's like one of 3 houses on the street, and fantasize about, and wish that it would come on the market somehow, and somehow, you know, it could be ours. And it just so happened that we knew the people that owned this house, and our friends were very close with them, and they mentioned to our friends that they were interested in selling. This house found us. We didn't find it. It was really, that's how it feels. It's a federal style house built probably at the end of the 18th century, early 19th century, and it has an interesting story. There was a great flood in the Connecticut River Valley in 1954, and almost all, like in the Depot, which is the town that's down the valley here, Washington Depot, almost all the houses were destroyed due to this flood. It was devastating, and this happened to be one of the houses that survived the flood in the Depot. And there was a family that owned basically all the land on this street, and they paid $1 to have this house brought up in the 1950s. So the reason why this house, you know, being a colonial house, is set back from the street is because it was moved here in the 1950s. So it's an interesting story. I mean, I would say, again, I love narrative in design. I like houses that tell stories. I like rooms that tell stories. And I mean, this house has like an instant narrative to it. Okay, so now let's head inside. Welcome to my family room. And one thing I do want to say about the rooms I'm going to show you is the way I like to design is I like each room to sort of tell its own unique story, whatever that may be, and it could be a theme, but at the same time, it's important for rooms to also communicate with each other, which I'll show you. It's a large room, but it's super cozy because we've got this Franklin fireplace, which is like an open stove, and it's another spot for entertaining. Again, it's like a good option from the porch, and it's a place where I can have big dinner parties and big groups, and you know, I mean, it's like a lofty space, and it also has nice views of the property in the back. The sofas, they're Harvey Prober, mid-century, but they're covered in a fabric, one of my fabric designs. And I mean, again, I just think they really anchor the space nicely. The coffee table is mid-century. I actually bought it in Los Angeles at a company called J.F. Chen. And this is one of those things. I was looking for years for a coffee table that would be this exact size, something that's long and narrow to fit this space. And I was in LA shopping for a client, and boom, I found it. So it was a perfect thing. So, and I didn't have to, it's again, like it just sort of it found me. I didn't find it. This is a light that I designed for Best & Lloyd. And that's the prototype. That was the first light before they went into production. So, I would say like everything in this room has its own unique story. These chairs I found in the Paris flea market. They're French school chairs from the 1940s that were sandblasted. This piece of linen I found in Sweden. It's an antique piece of linen that just it covers the table perfectly. These are English 19th century acid jars that I bought from an antique dealer. This is a French wine container. These are plasters that I bought in Paris. It's a grouping. I have about 10 of them, and then whenever I see a plaster, they're actually, they've become very rare to find, but they're all plasters from the 19th century. I've got about 10 or 15 of them. This is a pie safe that was in my wife's family from the 19th century. Everything has its own little story to tell. As I said, like everything in here is personal. This is the weather vane that was on my house growing up in Maine. One of the things I love to collect is antique glass. And, this is part of my collection. Some of this glass is from the 18th century, some of it's mid-century. I would say the thing that I find most attractive to this, to glass, is obviously the color, but also the shapes. And I like working with the shapes and mixing the shapes. And actually, some of these pieces I found on the property as well. They were unearthed when we were doing work. So some of them actually have always been here on the property, which I think is nice. When we initially moved in here, there were some things I mentioned that the landscape was a big priority, and just making it, opening it up, allowing more light in, having obviously more sunshine in the pool area. But I would say, architecturally, it's been unchanged. First of all, I think it's perfect the way it is. Secondly, I also believe that it's important to preserve houses that, especially if a house is done well and say it's designed well and it's architecturally correct, I think it's important to preserve it and restore it as much as possible. The rooms are small, and actually it's one of the things I like about, again, like a country house, is having a mixture of large rooms that you can entertain in and small, and I think it's a good mix of that. This kitchen was added on later. It wasn't part of the original house. This was probably added on about 25 years ago. But what I love about the space is that it's very bright. I like skylights. Some people don't like them, but I love them, and I love the light that they cast in the space. The main attraction to this kitchen is probably this enormous piece of Danby marble that we have on the island. It took like 6 men to bring it in. It's never moving, but this is definitely a table. It's definitely the area that we all hang out around all the time. Yeah, I have, you'll see more collections. In here, there's a lot of creamware, and it's something that I've been collecting for a number of years. I think I've got about 40 creamware pitchers, which have lots of uses, especially to put flowers in. I want this kitchen to feel like, everything's very accessible and, not too precious, but also, sort of orderly. Everything has its place, which is nice. This is an antique Dutch, I would say Hudson River Valley Dutch kaas. A kaas is basically, it's Dutch for a chest. And this is something that we bought early on, and it was in our New York City apartment. It's 18th century. And when we left the apartment, we didn't have any place for it. And when we bought this house, we found the perfect wall for it. But this chest is everything, because it's basically our wet bar. This is an important thing to have here, because this is where we keep our liquor and all our glasses, and it's just great for entertaining. I have many favorite cocktails. Lately, I've been experimenting with. I've been drinking white Negronis, which let's see. I think I've got all the ingredients here. We can have one later, not now. But the white Negronis, I think, would be one of my favorites for the summer. Also I love a good Moscow Mule as well. You'll see throughout the house there are a number of interesting pieces of art. This is a piece that was I bought in Los Angeles at a gallery. It was made in 1963 by an artist named Richard Ferralla. He was a contemporary to Louise Nevelson. And it's an enormous piece. And again, it just so happened that we had a space here for it. I like that contrast of, a modern art with, some of the antique barn beams and the different period details in here. The floors are all original. I'll show you. The floors are really cool. It's one of the things that I love about this house. Is like every room has different floorboards. Some of them are like wide, and there are like openings in them, and I mean it's taken hundreds of years to get the floors to look like this. It's really special. I love clocks. This is an 18th century grandfather clock. It actually tells time. I just have to wind it up, and it has a nice chime. But yeah, this is from 1776. It's a nice American antique. Again, this is like 7'7", this clock. So luckily, I have one place to put a clock like this. These are actually decorative beams. They're not real beams because these sort of beams would be more like in a barn. But I like how they add this. They add this change in texture to the kitchen, which is nice, and it makes it feel like a country kitchen. My main tips for design are, think about what your interests are. Whatever it is, whether it's collecting. Again, collecting is a big part, I think, of design. Are you interested in art? Are you interested in collecting ceramics? Sort of what excites you? Flowers. And I'm talking more about a country house. Think about the things that you love, because I think the best designed houses are rooms that tell a story about all the things you love. And a house should be an extension of who you are as a person, and it should reflect your interests. And again, if you love, your interests could be your children, it could be family, it could be cooking. But whatever it is, I would say, develop that, because at the end of the day, a house has to be a reflection of those who inhabit it. And I would say that to me is the most important thing, and that's what makes a house or a design or a room authentic, and not something that's sort of contrived or not you. I often see people, design spaces or have houses that are designed, but they're not them. They're somebody else. And I think you have to be true to what your interests are and true to who you are. And once a house, once you design your space, like for instance, I have not touched one thing in this house since I designed it 12 years ago. Yes, I always like sort of moving things around and tweaking things, or there might be a new table that came to replace the old table. But I would say by and large, I haven't changed anything in the space. And I think that's important. I think that says a lot about the design, because it adequately is a reflection of my personality and my tastes. And it's ultimately a place that, makes me happy. And your house should be obviously a place that makes you happy, especially a weekend house, because it's your escape. The other tips I have are, don't be afraid to take risks in design. I see this all the time with my clients, this fear of working with color and pattern or doing something bold in a space. I think that like one bold gesture can really set the design for a space and do amazing things. Now I'd like to bring you into the dining room. I love this room. This is an elegant room. Not only is it the dining room, but it's also a room that we walk through all the time to get through the rest of the house. One of the first things I did was I ordered this. I had this custom-made Gracie scenic wallpaper put in. I wanted it to be all about the gray tones and and amethyst. And I have a pretty large collection of amethyst glass. You'll see it over here. And I wanted, I wanted this room to have a different feeling from the other rooms. The focal point here is this Jean-Michel Franck dining table that I had made for the space, and these continental parcel gilt dining chairs. So I would say this is a room for more special occasions, and dining in the winter months is really nice. I have to say I love the way the light comes in and reflects off the amethyst glass. I mean, I walk through here, and when I see that, it makes me happy. I have these two flamingos, have found a home here in front of the fireplace. I found them at an antique, I found them in East Hampton at an antique show, and just fell in love with them. They're so sort of playful and I think beautiful. I would say this room is probably the oldest room in the house. This would have been the kitchen originally, especially with this big beehive oven. This was the kitchen, and then the room adjoining to it is probably like a little bedroom. And I'll show you the front room as well, the living room. So this is like the oldest part of the house, and you can also tell by the floorboards. They're all very irregular, and you can see they look quite ancient. So my book, which was just published in March, it's called Authentic Interiors. It's been a long time coming because my book, this book is really the story of my design voice as an interior designer and how I see design. And I do think that, I mean, again, I think it's really important to have a point of view as a designer. And, you know, for me, it's about creating spaces that are authentic to the homeowner. And I'm going to use that, as I said before, the best rooms, the best houses are ones that reflect the people who inhabit them. And I would say that's the overall guiding theme of the book. Let me take you into the living room. Everyone loves this room because it's very dark and enveloping, and it has a lot of paneling, and it's lacquered too, lacquered paint, so it's very reflective at night. The source of inspiration for this room was the Sleeper McCann house in Gloucester, Mass. It's a house that I've visited many times over the years. It's probably my favorite house. And he was one of America's first interior designers, and believed that, like myself, believe that each room should tell its own unique story. So while the dining room has its own unique story, this room does as well. And this room is just a wonderful space to withdraw to, whether you're alone or you've got guests, and after dinner, it's nice and dark. It's very much a night room, and it's also a cool space in the house as well when it's warm out. This is again one of the original rooms in the house, and this would have been like a multi-purpose room in the 18th century. The sofa and the chairs were upholstered in one of my fabrics for Durley Highland Court. The rug is custom. I designed, and it's one of my patterns. Funny enough, like we had a flood in here about 10 years, I'd say about 6 years ago, and absolutely everything in this room was destroyed. And the insurance company like, well, you can replace everything. And I did. I replaced all the upholstery, the rug, and I replaced it in the exact way it was before. So nothing ever changed. Because I just love the way, I've loved this room, and I haven't touched it since the day it was finished. I'm a big fan of ceramics that have, antique ceramics that have in different colors. I love, again, this is sort of these are greens and blues. They're all Chinese, some mid-century. I've got dozens and dozens of these. And again, I think that, having groupings in spaces, in rooms, they create interesting vignettes, and they have a lot of impact, I think. There's more groupings here. These are collection. These are mid-century French ceramic vases. They're for like little flowers, like little, just like little flowers to create groupings on a table. I've got more of these, but again, I love how this turquoise color contrasts nicely with the wall color. The wall color, incidentally, this is my favorite color. It's by Farrow & Ball. It's called Tanner's Brown. This desk my wife bought at an auction at Christie's back in the, many, many years ago. And it was in her apartment in New York. And we later found out that this desk is actually, it's 18th century American, and it's actually from this area, probably from the same town. And it was built in the 18th century. It could have possibly been in one of these houses. Who knows? But you can tell it's a Connecticut piece by the fan. And it's made of apple wood. Very cool, I think. It's a wonderful feeling knowing that like a piece of furniture, it's found its way back home. The coffee table is mid-century. I actually don't know offhand who the maker was, but I saw this at a gallery in New York, and I just thought it was perfect because it's antlers, deer antlers, but it's all made of brass, and it's from the 1970s. So I like how it just has this interesting narrative. It's like something, it has a country feeling to it because of the deer antlers, but at the same time, it's very modern, mid-century. Let's see, this is a painting that I bought many years ago in Vermont at a gallery. This has an interesting story. I'm a big fan of, sustainability. I found this once in front of my apartment over in Sutton Place. It was in the trash. And I saw just the one corner, just like this little corner coming out. I had it reframed, but it was part of like a grouping of things, some drawings and some prints. Anyway, I took this to an art dealer, and he's like, oh, this is like 19th century. It's a named German artist. But again, you just never know what you're going to find. Especially in New York City. I'm always looking. So one thing I will say is in here, talking about things, like things that are found, things that I found at flea markets. You'll see like everything in every one of these rooms is a mixture of high and low. So, I have a very valuable antique American desk, coupled with a chair that, I got at a flea market at the White Elephant. So, I think, and that's part of the magic of design is it's important to mix things, high and low, mix periods, play with scale. Again, that's all part of the magic, I think, and that's part of the art of designing a space well. Let's go upstairs now. Welcome to the second floor. It's really small and cozy up here, but we have a guest room and two little bedrooms I want to show you. First is the guest room, which is my favorite bedroom in the house because of the views of the property. It has great light. This room is the right proportions. It's got a really comfortable bed and, a nice seating area, like a really proper seating area as well. So, when we have guests, this is like a room that you could escape to and do your own thing. And it's important to have lots of places to sit in a house. And that's like my pet peeve is, going to a house and, just having like the places you can sit is like are really limited and you never feel truly comfortable. So this room is, when I started the design for this room, I started with a wall covering. This is one of my wall covering designs. I call it Desert Storm, but it's very much, it looks like camo, but it also looks like tree bark as well. And I wanted, that was the starting point. And then I found this incredible 19th century photograph of the Colosseum. That very much anchors the space. And so, after I found this, then when I ordered the bed, I ordered a custom headboard so that this photograph would fit over it nicely. And the furniture, this is actually a piece that I had from my family growing up. It's Duncan Fife. I guess the advantages of having a fabric collection and a wallpaper collection is that I did a fabric that looks like my wallpaper, which is nice. So the wallpaper, the fabric is a woven version of the walls. The chair, I love this chair. It's super comfortable. And this came from Jeffrey Bean's house out in Long Island. It's got a very unique, I think. It's got a beautiful base. I feel like this is the kind of room that you could escape to, you could sleep in late. And again, when we have guests here, I want them to feel like they're home, and I don't want them to feel any pressure. And I want them to, if they want to stay in the room, they can stay in the room and hang out. The dresser is a family piece. It's from Vermont. It's from the 18th century. And again, it's one of those pieces that we didn't have a place. It found its spot. It's never going to leave there. Piece I love. It's a bronze dish with Medusa on it. It's very dramatic. It's very grand tour, if you will. The fabric, which is camo, is also one of the fabrics from my collection with Baker. So, I like how all the patterns work really nicely together. This room has a lot of harmony, I think. Oh, yeah, so peppered throughout the house, you'll see a lot of owls. I have an obsession with owls. I always have. And not only that, we have owls all through, and we have owls out in the woods, and we hear them every night. There are many of them, and I've seen them on the street. I've even seen an owl on my porch. So we're owl rich up here, and it's funny. Like we've had many names for this house. It's gone through many iterations, but one of the names we call it is Owl's Nest. And actually, I used to raise bees. I had an apiary up until 2 years ago, and I was calling my honey the Owl's Nest honey. But I've had to stop it because we also have a bear problem as well. So I'm going to try to reintroduce the bees next year and maybe put them in a different place. And I have to take a different approach because it's a big problem up here. But for many years, I've had bees, and I love. Being a beekeeper is, it's something that I've loved to do. I've loved doing over the years. So there are lots of owls. I have stuffed owls. I bought. They're not kid toys. But you'll see we have owl sculptures. There are owl paintings. They're peppered throughout the house, quite a few. There are owls. It definitely one of my favorite creatures. All right, so now that you've seen the guest room, let me take you to the kids' rooms. First, my daughter's room. This room is entirely designed by her. I remember when she was a little girl. She's now 25 years old, and the room has not changed. We keep the room as she left it. And I remember when we were designing this room, I asked her, I said, well, how do you want your room to look? And she's like, Dad, I want grass green walls, I want zebra curtains, and I want a tennis ball green headboard. So this is it. And it hasn't really changed, but it's nice. We use this as a guest room, but also, this is her little space when she comes home. And usually there's also a zebra comforter on here as well. So it's fun. I think it was well designed. Yeah, and I think it still feels very fresh. And actually, you see this in a lot of houses from the 19th century and 18th century. They use grass cloth because grass cloth can cover up, all sorts of wall issues, right? Unevenness, cracks, you name it. So they used to use grass cloth and paint it over so it looked like it was part of the wall. Let me take you to my son's room. So this is Charlie's little room. It's a cute little space, and it also happens to house my map collection, which has been, again, growing over the years. And we have maps in here from many different periods, from an 18th century map of Paris above the bed to, again, some really cool maps. I would say that creates the narrative, the story for this room. We were putting this room together. He was like, "Daddy, I like maps." So I was like, "Great. Well, why don't I put my map? I'll put my maps in here for you." So it worked out. The only time I'll have to change it is, when it's time to, update the painting or the wallpaper and so forth. But, I think that, again, for me, that's an important thing about design. And I tell my clients, like, do it once and do it right. And then, you don't have to worry about like redoing it in 5 years. I know some people like want to redo their spaces every 5 or 10 years. And yes, rooms have to get painted, especially rooms that are heavy use. Paints fade over time, wall covering, fabrics fade over time. I get that, but I do believe that like if you do it right the first time, you can do it once. And again, the floors up here are very cool, I think. They're just so interesting. And I know, a lot of people have issues with the big grooves. And the reason these floors have big grooves in them is because they're so old that they've shrunk over time. And I know it's an issue for some people because, Legos and things get stuck in the floorboards in between. But I feel like it's part of the original character of the space. Let's go into the primary bedroom now. So this room has a lot of space. It feels like it's tucked away from the other rooms in the house. And it was added on later. This is not a room that would have been in the 18th century house. And it's really nice that it's separate from the other bedrooms as well. It's very private. I'd say the design for this room started with the art. I have a collection of contemporary art. Most of it is in the city, but you'll see there are quite a number of pieces here. The focal point in here is this Michael Laube piece. He's a Berlin artist. It sort of sets the tone color-wise. I also have these two pieces by John L. Moore. This is a painting that I commissioned from him, and this is a drawing. And again, I like the pairing of the contemporary pieces with, these antique pieces and all the texture. This is an antique Moroccan rug, and again, I sort of layered rugs on top of each other to make it feel cozy. This is a French mid-century. It's a Jean Pascal daybed, which, it's like a great spot just to like escape, take a little nap during the day. Again, this is the kind of bedroom that, not only is it really nice to sleep in, but it's also a room that you can escape to. And you can sit in here and you can read a book and get away, especially when the house is full of guests and people. I love this chest. I got this from an antique dealer in North Carolina. It's 19th century English, and it's just the kind of, I wish I had more of these because it fits everything. It fits so much, and it's such great storage. And I love how it creates some height in the space as well. And again, I do think that like every room, and you'll see, from room to room, that every room has things that are high and things that are low, and they create a nice contrast with each other. I happen to remember, it's funny because I have the worst memory for things, But when it comes to art and it comes to antiques and things I've collected, I can remember everything. I remember everything. I remember like who the name, where I bought it, what I paid for it, and who the designer was or what the provenance is. And it's so funny because my daughter's like, Dad, you know, we need to interview you. Because, you know, after you, we're not going to know where anything's from. But it's funny. I just have a memory. I have a memory for those things. And, you know, I don't know. I guess that's, you know, someone who, a true collector also. You know, and if you're passionate about things, passionate about the things you collect, you want to know. You want to remember everything you can, as much as possible about it. The fabric on the windows is an old Albert Hadley design, which I love. It's something they used to sell at Hinson. It's a fabric that's no longer available. So I'm hoping that those curtains are never going to change because it really is a special pattern. And, you know, I like how, you know, this room is this mixture of, it's quiet. It's a very quiet space. It's a nice, it has lots of earth tones in it. And then there are like these little pops of color throughout. It's mostly through the art. So I've got this Frank Auerbach piece here, a restful art piece, to, you know, just like some personal photographs as well, which, you know, I'm not opposed to having personal, I mean, some people don't want to see personal photographs, but I'm all for it. I mean, especially if they're in nice frames, for sure. And you know, these are all family pieces. This American Empire table. This is a family piece from my wife's side. It's hand painted by one of her ancestors. This quilt actually is a family piece, and it has the date. It was done by one of my wife's great aunts, but you can see the date 1886. But it's a very, very special family piece. A mix of, I've got this Rietveld chair. I've got this chair, you know, next to this English spindleback chair. So again, I think I like playing with periods and forms. I think that's what makes design interesting. Like an all period room to me is not as interesting as a room that has a mixture of periods and you know, designs and shapes. You'll see I've got lots of things from nature peppered throughout the house. You know, again, I think it's really important to bring in a little bit of the outside. Again, it doesn't have to be, it can be fresh cut flowers, but, you know, also just things from nature. And this is an antique collection of butterflies. And also, there are like lots of little stones and rocks in different places. And again, I think it's nice to bring in, you know, they offer like texture and color and kind of reminder that, you know, we're in the country. Let me take you into the office. You know, this was a library. During COVID, it turned out being like, this room became everything. It became a family office, basically. So this is where, you know, when anyone is here and doing work, we're doing it here. If we're working virtually, it's in this space. But this, I mean, this is a really cozy little room. I love it. I mean, again, the walls are covered in grass cloth. This is a wall covering that I designed for the ceiling. It's like this faux marquetry effect. And the sofa is, you know, this is a sofa. This is a fabric that's discontinued. It's a Billy Baldwin pattern. It's an old pattern. You can't get anymore. It's a Tree of Life. But I mean, again, you know, it's very special and it works really nicely in here. I have a grouping of these fun prints on the wall. This is a hooked rug. This actually came from Bill Blass's house, and I had it mounted. But again, I love the colors, and it's, you know, it's like early American, early 19th century. The fabric on the windows is one of my designs. And, you know, this is just like a nice little room. It's cozy. I have a modern desk here. You You know, it's also a good room. Like I have Zooms in this room, and I would say it's a pretty good Zoom room because there's a lot to look at in the background. Adjoining this room is a little powder room, and I mean, I guess what I'm most proud about this room is this is another one of my wall covering designs. I call it a Luthera, but it's like a very, I like how it's very lush and leafy, and you know, it's a little bit more tropical design. But again, I have no issue with bringing in like a tropical element into the country. I mean, why not? You should design rooms, and you should use patterns and wall coverings that make you happy when you walk into a space, and this definitely makes me happy. All right, so whenever I walk around the gardens, I always bring a set of clippers just in case I see a weed, and there are lots of weeds out there. I think I mentioned when I first bought this house, this was basically this is a wooded lot, and it was very hard to even see the house from the street. So the first couple years was spent just cleaning up the property, redoing the stone wall, which is quite ancient, just cutting down trees. One of the magical things that happened once I cut down the trees and I created some sunlight, I discovered these wonderful rock outcroppings on the property, which was a great opportunity to create these raised perennial beds that you see around here. A lot of the plants and the trees have gotten pretty mature now, but when we first moved here, everything's like grown in. It's actually, everything's overgrown now because of all the rain we've gotten. I like to think of the year 2024 as the year of the hydrangea, because I've never had so many hydrangea as I've had this season. It's amazing. And you're sort of seeing the tail end of it right now. This is, it's August, and there's usually not a lot blooming in August. This is like that sort of shoulder time. There'll be a lot more flowers blooming in the, next month in September. There'll be asters will be coming out, and the sedum, and a lot of sort of these fall-loving flowers. So the first thing that blooms are the peonies, and I've got about 100 different peony plants on the property. In July, the hydrangeas start coming out, and the hydrangea bloom all season. I do pepper in some annuals as well, just to add a little bit of color. And you'll see, there's a lot of material here, a lot. This is just one of like 6 different gardens, and this is mostly hostas, hydrangea, the peonies, which, this is a beautiful garden in June. And you can see from over here, it gives you sort of a sense of the undulating property that I'm on. So there's no flat land here, which is nice, and it's just sort of undulating, and then there's a hill, then it goes down again. So it's mostly maples. The oldest tree on the property is this cherry tree, and apparently this is a cherry tree right here, this big one near the road, and I was told that's the oldest cherry tree in Litchfield County. So yeah, and it looks like it's been struck by lightning a couple times. Anyway, someday that will make a beautiful piece of furniture or a floor. So my philosophy on gardening is I like to, again, just as I design interiors, I like to mix plants, and I like to sort of mix shapes and add a little structure where I can, and I like that sort of mixture of structure and unstructured. And I'd say most of the structure of the garden is here in the center, where I have these boxwoods. We also call this house Boxwood Row for this reason. And the boxwood, these were little babies when I put them in, And you can see, I mean, they're huge now. They're like 6 feet tall. But they provide so the structure for the garden, and then everything else is sort of, I let grow wild. This is a huge perennial garden. I'll take you up. A bit overwhelming too. There's a lot. I mean, again, like this time of year is like, it's actually time to start cutting back things as well. This is a different color every month. So right now it's mostly pinks, but it starts off being blue. This is a little patio I put in, and I was weeding and I noticed that these little guys were coming in through the stones of the patio, and I just left them. But again, why not? Like, you know, if you find something beautiful, like a beautiful moment, just let it happen. You know, there's no need, let them grow through, and I think it's wonderful. It's a wonderful spot. You can sit here, and you've got these beautiful, like this verbena, this backdrop of verbena. This pink flower is echinacea, and you know, I think I planted only a few plants initially, and you can see where it's like completely taken over, but I think it's beautiful. I mean, I love the pink flowers, and they stay like this for a good month or more. That's the remnants of my beehives. Although I haven't had bees in 2 years because they were taken out by this unwanted bear, I still keep them down there. You can see in the distance over here is a tree house. This is something I built for my son, and we created this little. It's a little campground too, but it's a 40-foot high treehouse, and we have bunk beds in it, and it's, you know, it's a place where we used to go and camp out, kids and I. I have to say, I've camped out a few times. It's a little creepy. You hear a lot of animals out there. One night, I swear I heard a really large animal crawling on the roof. A little weird, but it's fun. It's really fun, and it's what I like about it. It's like this little escape on the property. So this is what you see here is this natural outcropping that, I mean, I think it's incredible. It's I planted it all out with perennials, and the ferns are really happy there. But again, to sort of conform with the contour of the rock outcropping, we made the pool sort of in a regular shape because I wanted to feel kind of, you know, I wanted to feel like it fits in with the landscape as opposed to standing out. So you'll see, it feels more like a pond. So 2 weeks ago, we were here and woke up in the morning and looked out here, and there was a bear swimming in the pool. Literally, a 400-pound bear was swimming in the pool, and he was blowing bubbles. He cooled off and he went up through the garden. This is a vast perennial garden here. There's so much material growing in here. And again, every season it's every season looks different, or I should say every month. Right now it's like the tail end. Asters are coming up. These are these giant asters, which are so cool, I think. I planted a couple here, and now they're just taking over. But again, I think that one of the secrets to having a successful garden is to think about the things that are sort of native to the area. You want to grow things, you want to cultivate things that are happy, that are going to come back year after year. You also don't want to necessarily grow things that are going to be invasive or take over. And a lot of that's trial and error. For instance, this white plant material is called loosestrife, and I didn't know that it was so invasive. So there's certain things that you have to cut back. You have to constantly cut back because you don't want it to take over the garden. It's easy for that to happen. Oh, the other area I want to show you is there's one more garden. It's more like a rock garden. I planted these vines, and they've just taken over, but I love it. They bloom at different times, but I like how it's created this lush wall. It's like a lush divider between, into the pool area. Nice transition. Yeah, this is a little escape area. So it's an area to sit and read, take a nap. There's also a hammock here as well. It's a good escape back here. One thing I will say is, I've experimented. I've had vegetables growing here over the years, and I've stopped with the vegetables. Now I have herbs growing, but it's mostly just cut flowers, because I think it's just one of the nicest things to do, is to be able to come up here on the weekends and just cut fresh flowers from the property. So that's what I like to do. So home to me is a place where you feel safe and you feel happy, and you can walk in and just have that aha moment, I'm so glad to be home. This is where I belong. And I love to travel. I'm always moving. I have an apartment in the city, and I'm up here as much as I can, usually weekends, but I also do a lot of work in the area. So, I'm up here whenever I can, but, walking in here, I always get that feeling I'm home, finally. So I think that to me is most important.
On today's episode of Homeworthy, we're in Southport, Connecticut, visiting the cozy family home of chef and content creator Cat Ashmore. Kat's home beautifully reflects New England tradition and is enhanced with collected touches like whimsical wallpaper, antique furniture, and captivating artwork. Kat is a go-to expert for all things delicious and nourishing. As a professionally trained chef and former producer and recipe developer for Martha Stewart, Kat shares her culinary expertise from her charming Connecticut kitchen to millions of people online. So get ready for a tour filled with warmth, inspiration, and plenty of culinary creativity. Enjoy! You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi, Homeworthy. I'm Kat. Welcome to my home in Connecticut. Come on in. I'm Cat Ashmore. You may also know me as Cat Can Cook. I am a cookbook author, food and lifestyle social media creator, and television personality. And I'm really excited to have you here. So right now you are at my home in Southport, Connecticut. It is part of Fairfield County in Connecticut, about an hour from New York City. And the feeling that I really wanted to capture in this home was really staying true to the traditional Connecticut, New England style, while also mixing in some more eclectic and collected touches, sort of British country, traditional Connecticut vibes. When we found this home, my husband joked that there is no such thing as turnkey for myself, and I think a lot of people understand that. I'm always going to want to make changes. So really what made us select this home was the location. It's in a wonderful neighborhood. We can walk to town where there are little coffee shops and markets, and we're also about a 15-minute walk to the beach on both sides, which is really lovely. And the lot itself, it's not a massive lot, but we have made it really usable, and it sort of felt like this retreat on the weekends, and we just don't want to leave. This room is sort of our formal sitting living room. Really, everything was based around two pieces in this room. The sofa that was actually a wedding gift from my uncle, who is an artist and a designer. I just love it so much. It's this beautiful sloped vintage piece. And I had these two panels of artwork done by the amazing Kirsten Tierney. It was my first time ever having custom artwork made, and she is just a complete genius. She uses tools to make these really beautiful billowy florals, and it's sort of abstract, it's warm, it's a real statement piece for this room. And I also like the fact that with two small kids, I knew that these needed to be in a room where they weren't going to be having pillow fights. So they're somewhat protected here. I have a lot of, as you can probably tell, I'm a big fan of neutrals and then adding in pops of color and lots of texture for warmth. You will see throughout my home some examples of, again, I learned a lot from my uncle, who is an artist and a designer. He talks a lot about rooms needing to have tension and needing to have conversation with pieces that you wouldn't necessarily expect to have in that room, and that it all adds a lot of depth and keeps it from feeling like it's just a page out of any catalog you could pick up, right? So I added in some color. These pillows are by Pepper Home, which is a great resource for practically custom pillows, but much more streamlined. I love their company so much. And then these are vintage finds from Cherish. I'm going to be saying the word cherish a lot. It is like my version of, TikTok or Tinder for some people. I will just scroll at night on Cherish and I could get completely lost in there. It is an amazing vintage and antique website. So I brought in a little pops of color. I think that the pinks and the reds, they're not overwhelming, but they add some warmth and some personality into this room that otherwise feels quite traditional and, a bit rustic, I would say. I love this settee. It's quite a long room and it's fairly narrow, but we've been able to create a really nice seating and conversation area here, which is great. Again, I love to read here. We like to play chess. You will find a chess set underneath there. My style is very high-low. It's very collected. It's very mixed, whether it's, what I'm wearing, what I'm eating, how I'm decorating my room. So there are some great pieces that like this that we found for $50 on Facebook Marketplace. And it houses my pretty extensive china and dinnerware collection. So that is coming really handy. And then we have this lovely Dutch door here that goes out into our backyard and our covered seating area. I really love this moment here, especially when there's a fire going in the winter time. It feels very warm, a little bit equestrian, again, sort of a nod. This is some British country art that I found via a vintage source. And it's just a really inviting and lovely moment. I found that I've gotten quite sentimental as I've gotten older, and I love incorporating pieces that are hand-me-downs from family, and these end tables were a must for me. These were in my grandparents' home in North Haven, Connecticut, and I love them so much, and I think about them every time that I'm in this room. Now let's go into the dining room. Follow me. Before we head into the living room, I want to mention this piece. I often talk about the fact that really you should think outside of the box in terms of what can go on your wall and what can become art. And this is actually a vintage swan tray that I love so much. I just said to myself, I don't want to just use it once in a while. I want to have it on my wall where I can see it multiple times a day. It makes me very happy. And now we'll come into our dining room. This dining room is quite small, as you can tell, and I love that about it. When we moved into this house, there were some talks around, blowing out the walls and making the ceilings higher. I want my spaces to hold me. I want my rooms to feel like a warm hug, and this room feels like a warm hug to me. It's really intimate and really, really fun to be in here. As you can see, we have the table set because we're going to be having some birthday dinners, actually 2 this week, and nothing makes me happier than setting a table. When I am doing a tablescape, I am really looking at, again, incorporating different textures and colors. I like to be fairly practical and not just have a ton of stuff that is going to make it too hard to eat. And I really like to combine different types of dishes and china. So these are Richard Ginori dishes, which I love so much. My family took a trip to Italy and It was exactly this line of his dishes that was in the hotel, and it brings back really nice memories. We've got a lot of texture in the chargers. I love a woven charger like this because I just find it to be evergreen. You can use it all year round. It makes it so easy to set a table. And I'm also not a fussy person. As much as I love really beautiful rooms, I don't want my spaces to look like you're in a museum, you're afraid to touch anything. I've got a 5 and an 8-year-old, so that is just not practical. I want to enjoy our spaces. So yes, you can use linen napkins, but may I suggest a dark color? I love this piece. This is an Etsy find, which can be dangerous, but it has gotten me a lot of great pieces. I'm obsessed with this color. Green is my favorite. You may not be able to tell yet, but you will. And this really kind of makes the room. It's really practical. I hold a lot of our table linens, and I think that having something whimsical in every room, my mother has often said that every room needs a touch of whimsy, and I agree with that, so that it doesn't feel overly serious and stuffy. And to know me is to know that I do not take, I am very easy to laugh at myself. I love to have fun. We have a lot of fun in our house. So it's true to who I am. So these are some really beautiful botanical drawings that I sourced. It came as a set of 3, and I decided to break them up to not to overwhelm the wallpaper and to still let that shine. So I've got those in here. These are another vintage find. I'm a big fan of vintage artwork. Now we're entering the part of the house that we did a lot to. We did gut the kitchen. And we made a lot of structural changes to this part of the home. One of them was that this was closed off, and I really wanted to open it up while still keeping it separate. I am not a fan of a totally open floor plan for myself and for my family because the kids can be a lot and I still need places to hide. But I do like to have a nice flow and to be able to kind of see what's going on in the kitchen and the family room, and to also have, you know, a nice vantage point into the dining room, especially with this beautiful wallpaper. It's really nice to look at. And now I'd love to show you the kitchen. Come on in. Now, it's no surprise that this is my favorite part of the house. Any of you that follow me on social media, you are very familiar with this space. This is my kitchen. We did a lot of work in this space. When we saw the house, it was a nice kitchen before, but I knew that this was my opportunity to really build out my dream kitchen. It's where, you know, I'm shooting my next cookbook this week, actually. I do all of my videos here. I shoot television from here. So it truly is sort of my studio, as well as where we spend probably 80% of our time in this house. The first thing that I knew I wanted was to have a massive island. So this was the largest piece of stone that we could get that was just one piece, and it didn't leave a lot of room for just kind of hanging out in the kitchen. But the way that I thought about it was, you know, unless we're dancing or cooking, we're going to be sitting here. So this is really where we have our meals during the week. We go into the dining room on the weekends, and we have breakfast, we play games, the kids color, of course, I cook, and I shoot all of my videos for social media here. But it has been a great decision to have an island that is this big. So it does house 7 people, so 7 people can dine here. Of course, lots of standing room. You can pull up other chairs if you need to. And there's tons of storage, which of course, you know, as someone who is a cookbook author and food blogger and trained chef, I need a lot of storage because I have a lot of stuff. So it's been a dream. I have never had enough storage in my life for all of my kitchen stuff. So this has been great. These ovens, these Wolf ranges and ovens were already in the home, which was great. The previous owners didn't cook, so they're pretty much in perfect condition, which is a huge win for me. But we have the double ovens, we have the 6 ranges, and that's been fantastic. But everything in here is completely new, and it is exactly what I wanted. So When we first looked at the house, there was an island, but the island was quite thin. I would say probably half the size of this in width, and it ran this way with the seating facing here. So everything was turned around. We moved the stove, the fridge, we added tons of storage, of course, and I knew that I just wanted to flip it all around so that I got lots of light from both sides, but nothing that was directly on my face, especially when you're shooting television or social media. That's important, having good lighting. So all of the natural light in here has been phenomenal to have. This entire area is new. This actually used to be a bit of a mud room. So it was like a very thin mud room that had some storage, and I guess where the kids would kind of like put their backpacks and coats and things like that. But we decided to make this into the sink counter so that you have the sink over here, any dirty dishes, any clean dishes that need to be put away, they're all over here, they're out of sight, and I can kind of be in this space that is nice and free. If we're entertaining, it's an open kitchen, but you're also not staring at dirty dishes because the sink is in the island. So I really like having the sink separately. I also really wanted it to be more pleasurable to do dishes by having a window here and, you know, to be able to look at nature and get some sunlight in, which is a nice treat. For my kitchen, when I was actually designing it, I knew that I wanted it to feel like a bright and airy space, lots of neutrals. You know, I would say probably 75% of the house is painted white dove, and it's just that really perfect warm white. Now, I wanted it to be neutral so that I was really able to focus on my food and let the food be the hero of my content and my photos and my videos. With that said, I'm always looking for how can I add in warmth and texture. So we have some nice texture, which with these stools, these are Serena and Lily stools, and I swear by these because they're so easy to clean. My kids get spaghetti sauce on them. I mean, it just wipes off. So that is a must. And then over here, you'll see I have lots of touches, like this vintage ship mirror. I have some platters up here. These are Bordello Panero, and then this is Richard Ginori. Again, lots of green and white. I've got this, you know, beautiful little rechargeable lamp and tons of greenery. I am a plant lady through and through. I love them so much. I call it plant therapy. If I'm having a bad day, I will go off to this store, Terrain, or one of the many beautiful garden centers around here. And I always feel a little bit better after I get plants and flowers. So I make sure that I have that. People always ask me, where do I put all of the kids' stuff? Like, how is everything so clear? Number one, it's not always so clear, okay? My house looks like it's lived in because it is. But storage is really important. So you will see a lot of baskets. We've got, you know, these cane baskets. I've got this one that I use as a bread basket. I've got little random papers and things like that. In this one, you will also see over here, I love to reuse things like the Fortnum and Mason tea baskets. So this is just for the junk that kind of accumulates. I have a 5-year-old girl, and the amount of tchotchkes that she has in her backpack on a daily basis, I'm like, where have you been? Because you were not at school. Like, where are you collecting all this stuff? So that goes in here, and then once a week, we're just able to clear it out. The other touches that are really nice is that we have a couple of beverage fridges here in the island, which is really nice. It frees up very precious real estate in the main refrigerator for all of the food. But as you see, I mean, we have storage all through here, right? So pots, pans, I have all of my different silverware through here. We have, you know, of course, my spice cabinet and things like that, and then nice deep cabinets throughout, and all the way around the island is storage. So even on that side, those are all open cabinets. So, you know, I love a beautiful space, but function always has to come first, especially with this being my job. And then here's a little hidden door where we have our Amazon Echo to listen to podcasts and music, our little coffee station, and that kind of just gets put away there for us. I actually didn't even go to culinary school until I was 28 years old. I had started in marketing, and I had always loved to cook, but I was under the impression that the only jobs available to you would be owning a restaurant or working in a restaurant, and that wasn't a direction I wanted to go in. And then when I went to tour a couple of culinary schools in New York City, I got a feel for just how big that world could be. And so I knew I wanted to go into the food media and food business side of the food industry. So after going to culinary school, which, you know, my objective was just to really learn from the best, to sort of get the proper credentials to be able to speak the language of food, to understand the science behind cooking and baking and why things work, which I talk to my communities about a lot. I think when you understand the why, then it starts to become fun, because that's when you really know how to cook. If you're only just reading recipes, it's like following a GPS to get everywhere. You don't actually know where you're going. You're just kind of following steps. And I want more for you than that. So that's what I always try to do, is talk about the why, and then you can be creative on your own. That is really the first step to being able to be creative in the kitchen. So after spending my time working at Martha Stewart, I was on the food producer team on her television show, The Martha Show, and then I went over to corporate and was in recipe and product development over there. But I didn't start my own business until 2020. And that was really when I started creating on social media. I started my website, KathleenAshmore.com, and started posting my recipes, started posting food and lifestyle content. And Martha has always been an inspiration to me in that way as well, because, you know, she started in catering, and food is so much at the center of who she is and what she loves, but it's really about creating this whole experience and telling this full story, and it bleeds into all different areas of her life. And she has so many different interests, whether it's gardening or fashion or, you know, makeup and skincare or, you know, pets. I have learned a lot about that. And I think as women, we can have a tendency to feel like we need to stay in our lane, when the truth is that I am my lane. You know, I am my niche. You are your lane. You are your niche. So expand, you know, that's a beautiful thing. I'm someone that really loves to surround myself with people that are smarter than me, and I am like a sponge when I'm inspired by someone. So having worked for Martha Stewart after culinary school and being able to see her in her element and really get such an incredible education, and be so inspired by her, and making spaces around her beautiful, but also in a highly practical way. She is not a fussy or overly precious person, and that is very much how I live my life as well. It's why, like, my nails are never super long, because, like, I'm using them for everything. You know, I'm outside in the dirt, and I'm cooking, I'm doing all of those things. I think having that type of attitude and perspective about your spaces is part of what allows other people to come in and feel really at ease and at home. And one of the things that people tell me most, and my husband always laughs, like, oh God, she loves to hear that, is how cozy and welcoming my house is. I think they know they can put their feet up and they don't have to worry about, you know, knocking something over or spilling something. I'm not very fussy about any of that. I want people to have fun. So right off the kitchen is our family room, and this is the open concept part of the home. This is where, truthfully, the kitchen and the family room is where we spend like our entire lives, to be honest. And I love it that way. I love the fact that the kids can be in here while I'm cooking, if we have people over. I mean, we live in this space. Right, buddy? So do you. This is Calhoun. He also lives in this space. And in this room, this is where we have the high ceilings. So this area was an addition to the original home that they had put in. So it has always had these sloped high ceilings. We added shiplap on top, and then we just adore how much light we get in this room. Of course, we have our window treatments that can make it really cozy and block some of that out, but it is a very happy, homey, cozy space. As we said, lots of plants. My husband never misses an opportunity to make between two ferns jokes because of my love for ferns. And yes, just a very happy space. This is my little corner where I meditate. I do transcendental meditation twice a day. And every morning, this is my little corner where I don't bring my phone. I have my book that I read after my meditation, and it's just a really peaceful spot. If my kids see me here, they know not to disturb me yet. Took a little training on that one, but we are finally there. Huge fan of coffee table books, but not only that, huge fan of actually reading coffee table books because they are much more than just a beautiful, piece of decor. So I like to make sure that they are out, that you have a lot of access to them, and that I'm just flipping through them for inspiration, which I do often. Bunny Williams, India Hicks, Aaron Lauder, Mark Sykes, and Martha Stewart are some of my favorites. You're not surprised about Martha, right? It probably should have led with her. But in this room, again, blues and greens are my favorite combination. Green's my favorite color. So we've got a lot of neutrals in here, but tons of texture. You see a lot of wicker and rattan and velvet, and I think it just makes it feel very welcoming. At least I hope so. So we do have this sectional in here, which we've had for a few years now. This is a room and board sectional, and it has been great if you have kids, pets. I mean, as you saw, Calhoun is on the couch all the time, and he sheds a lot. I love you, but it's true. And the kids are always jumping all over the sofa. So I could not have a sofa that was too precious, that I was going to be stressing myself out all the time if there was a spill in here. The kids even have their snacks in here on a nightly basis. This sectional has been great. As a family, we love to do family movie nights and all kind of cuddle up, and there's also plenty of space as the kids get a little bit older and don't want to be cuddled by me as much, but I'm going to force them to for as long as I can. So we've got this nice big sectional, and then these two chairs here are great. It's not a massive space, so I didn't want anything overpowering. These are by Coley Home, and this nice performance linen. I love this sort of bluish gray color, and I purposefully make it so that the furniture doesn't match in my rooms. You may have noticed that, but it, again, like my uncle always says, it creates a conversation. So it complements each other, but it's not too matchy-matchy. So for instance, I have this black pedestal table. I have no other black furniture, but I have the black countertops in the kitchen. So there's little pops and then all different kinds of wood. I'm not someone who thinks that you have to stick with, one type of wood finish or even two types. I think you can have more of a cherry look. I think you can have a painted wood. I think you can have black. I think you can have brass and glass, and it all just, if you love it, it will work. That's my motto. As I've said, in each room, I feel like you need to have something that doesn't feel so serious, that is a bit whimsical, that has some personality. And this light fixture really does that for me. So I think the safe bet would be to go for a more traditional light. But I love the attitude of this chandelier. It's, really large, which works well for the high ceilings, and it makes a real statement. It's fun. It's that striking balance of elegant and fun, which I'm always looking to achieve. So in here, you'll also see that I have this very large piece of floral art again, but a very different kind of floral art from the custom panels by Kirsten Tierney that are in the front. So this is just this giant vintage piece. I think it was Provençal. I believe it was a French artist that created this. And of course, these are my colors. So it spoke to me. This was like the deal of the century that I found. And it just happens to work absolutely perfectly. And I think that having a couple of pieces that are grand, whether it's the light fixture, art like this, having wicker columns here, the wicker pedestals, all of that just kind of makes a statement within the room, and I think it can do a lot to elevate a space. One of the mistakes that I've made in the past, and I know some people kind of struggle with, is grouping too many small things, whether it's on a shelf or a coffee table or on a wall, and they just kind of get lost without really saying very much. So yeah, I keep that in mind. So as you can imagine, I do need a large pantry, and so we created this pantry. We borrowed some space from the bathroom, which I will show you in a second. So the previous bathroom used to come all the way out to here, and I thought, we don't need that big of a bathroom. We need a good sized pantry. So this is where all of our dry goods live. As you see, I've got some bananas for banana bread, and I have to leave them out so that I don't forget about them, so that I make sure that I make them. But I've got things, I think, pretty well organized, but you can also tell that I cook, because I think sometimes pantries, for me, just would not be functional. They're beautiful, but not functional, and function always has to come first. So I think it's pretty organized. And I did have help in here organizing this by a friend of mine who is also an organizer. She really helped set me up with these great bins and everything for snacks for the kids. And we do have, you know, chips and chocolate and granola bars and things like that. And, you know, my kids eat all of it. It is all about balance in our house. The best advice I have for organization is to be realistic with yourself about how you live. What works in someone else's pantry is not necessarily going to work in your pantry. So make sure that you are prioritizing the things that you use the most, because I think it's so easy to set up an organization system that works really well for someone else, but then within a week everything is completely disorganized again because it's just not realistic for your lifestyle. So for me, I know that all of these snacks are things that get eaten very regularly. The chips, I just leave them there because the kids eat them so much that it doesn't make sense for them to be in one of these little bins down here. And then I bake a ton. So all of my baking ingredients are labeled and ready to go for me. So this here, you're probably wondering what the heck it is. It is not, you know, one of my kids' art projects. This is actually written by Ferran Adrià, who is, you know, the founder of the famed El Bulli restaurant in Spain, which won best restaurant in the world many, many years in a row. And I went to a lecture of his when he was coming out with a cookbook set that was thousands of dollars. And I went to a lecture of his, and after he was finished, he left the stage, and I asked if I could take one of the pieces that he had written on. He right here is explaining what an emulsion is, for example. And so I framed this, and it cost me nothing. Never mind thousands of dollars, but it cost me nothing. And it makes me very happy. So I've got that in here, and then I have just like a little board to do our meal planning and things like that. This has been a necessity. I'm also able to have some of our larger appliances here so that they aren't taking up space on my counter. Never been able to do that before, and that is a real treat. So things like the toaster oven, the Vitamix, the air fryer, you know, things we use regularly, but I don't need to have right at my fingertips all the time. So now we can head upstairs, and I'll show you some of the rest of the house. And on the way, I'll point you to this gallery wall, which I had designed with frame bridge, and I love it, not only because, well, first of all, this always ends up feeling like a really daunting project to get your family photos and to choose which ones warrant being on your wall. And I just said, you know what, I'm going to start and leave myself some space to allow it to grow with us. But one of the things I like the most is that the frames are all different, but within the same family. So again, it feels really collected and complementary without feeling too matchy-matchy. So we'll come on into our primary bedroom. And this is a space that I really wanted to keep very calm, very soothing, light, bright, airy, but with a lot of texture. You're probably seeing a theme by now. So we've got this really nice textured knot rug, and then keeping it super simple. I've actually tried to go a little bit more minimalist with the pillows on my bed. My husband used to complain about how many decorative pillows. He used to joke, why don't we just put decorative pillows all the way to the end? Why don't we just do that? Just cover the whole surface. I was like, don't give me any ideas. So I'm pretty proud of myself for the restraint that I've been practicing. But we had all of these closets built for my husband, because I'll show you my closets in a second. But the existing closets worked for both the husband and the wife in this house's previous life. So my husband had some closets built for him. It works really well. We can keep our outerwear in there. And these are two nightstands that are vintage that a friend of mine found actually in New York City at an estate sale. And I love that it just adds that depth. Whereas if we had something that was a lighter wood, a beech wood, a white, it would have been fine, but it would have been expected. And this feels, again, like something that kind of grounds the space. And then these are my closets that are very nicely organized for the moment, but a great amount of storage for me to have. And then of course, we're able to walk into our primary bathroom. We have a lot of light and a sitting area that's right outside of our closet area, which is really lovely. And then this is our primary bathroom. I purposely chose to have this unexpected light fixture in here. Similar to what I chose for the family room, I like to have something a bit grand and unexpected. And this does not necessarily feel like a bathroom light, but I love the oversized drum light. My husband can just make it under here at 6 feet tall. So we just made it. Of course, the tub, I love so much. I love that it's right by all of the windows. The cafe curtains add a lot of warmth, but still allow a lot of light to get through. So now I'm going to show you my office, which is a newly designed room, and I could not be happier with it. So here in my office, I have really taken a lot of liberty to just make my heart very happy, because I haven't had to consult my husband. It has been this room that really can be all of the girly, cozy, fun ideas, sort of bring them all together. This was a really tricky space because it's small and it sort of has an awkward layout. So this is the one room that I did have a friend's designer that she had introduced me to weigh in a little bit on bringing a lot of these pieces together. And it was her idea to actually put my vanity up against the wall. So this is my vanity. This is a very old desk that my uncle had gifted to me when I was a teenager, and I used it as a vanity then. So I love repurposing it, and it's really nice to see my daughter here getting ready with me, which always takes twice as long somehow. And yes, I just love it so much. And having all of this natural light has been really great for filming too, when I need to do something over here. And then over here, I've got this nice velvet blush seat, and then this beautiful custom-made ottoman. Lots of pattern play in here, which has been really fun to do. This carpet was cut out of a piece of carpet to almost cover the entire floor, so it gives it that really cozy underfoot feel. The wallpaper, of course, is a really fun part of this room. Lots of personality in here, that's for sure. And then this desk is by Celery Kemble, and it is fantastic. I feel like I will have this piece for a very, very long time. And behind here is where I have a lot of storage. Of course, my first cookbook is here. And since I do a lot of my meetings and calls right here, it's a great background to have. As you can see, I needed a lot of storage for books. I'm a big reader, and of course I have a ton of cookbooks. My entire collection is probably close to 300, but these are, this is probably 50% of them that I use, on a regular basis. And when I say use, it's often flipping through them and reading stories and inspiration and things like that. Every once in a while, I will, cook out of them too, but every one of them has a story. For me, when I think about a home, I think of it as an extension of myself. I think of it as sort of my heart outside of my body, how I want people to feel when they are around me, the kind of friend I am, the kind of mother I am, the kind of boss I am, the kind of contributor I am to society. That's how I want people to feel as soon as they step into my home. So the core of me, which is someone that really values hospitality and making people feel welcome and seen, is I hope, very fluent throughout my home as well.
Hi, Homeworthy. My name is Caroline Kopp, and this is my home in Westport, Connecticut. Come on in.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi, Homeworthy. My name is Caroline Kopp. Welcome to my home in Westport, Connecticut. I am from Wyoming. I ended up coming to the East Coast almost 25 years ago to attend Parsons School of Design. And then from there, I had great luck finding amazing positions working for incredible interior designers at the top of their game in New York. Then ultimately, once I got married and we started having kids, we moved to Westport, Connecticut. And I just love it here. It's an amazing community. It's beautiful. And there's a very rich tradition of architecture and like a pride of home that you see here, as well as quality craftsmanship. So it's a really, really nice place to practice interior design because there's a lot of appreciation for all of the different elements that come together for a beautiful home. So we're here in my entry hall. This is the first room that you come in from the front door. And it's just very, clean and kind of spare. I like a spare look. I don't like clutter, but there's definitely a room here to do more layers as we collect things. In this room, you can see I love plants. I love styling with plants. I think it gives such a great life to a room. It gives you the oxygen, and people always shy away from getting plants because they're scared that they're gonna die. And I've actually had some of these in here for over a year, and they're flourishing. So don't feel afraid to get plants. And if your plants die, just go buy another one. It's okay. It's not that you're a bad person. Over here I have, this is a teak. It sort of looks like an altar. It's like based on an Asian shape. And then you can see it's like eclectic here. I have this mirror that I've had since my days working at Arrow. This is kind of a memento of my first real design job because I bought it when from the store and design studio where I was working, and my boss designed this mirror. So that is something that I've carried with me from place to place to place. And I actually have kind of an obsession with mirrors. I love all different types of mirror. I like antique mirror, I like clear mirror. You really can't go wrong having a mirror, and it does really do all of the things that they say of kind of expanding the space and bouncing light back and forth. Then over here, this is a little painting that I bought, and it looks just like a town that my husband and I rode bikes to once in France, Gourd. And I just love that, it's a little bit modern. It's like a little bit cubist. This stool is interesting. I got it at this great resource here in Norwalk. It's called Fairfield County Antique and Design Center. And so it is a fabulous place to go vintage shopping. And this, I assume, is kind of from the 80s. It has like a little bit of an 80s vibe. As you come in this front space, then you just have, on one side you have this living room, and on the other side the dining room, and they're both in blue. And so this was something that I kind of thought about a lot, and I went through so many iterations with my paint schedule and a lot of testing of colors. And I love color, but there were some things that I started doing that when I saw them starting to go up, I was like, this looks like a crazy person lives here. So I had to dial it back a little bit. But yeah, with paint, absolutely you want to do a lot of testing because you just don't really know what you're going to get until it's up. So we looked at a lot of different colors for these rooms. In this room, this paint color is actually customized. It's on the lightest end of the Benjamin Moore fan deck, but most of those colors that are actually not that light as you think they are, they end up being like a very kind of fluorescent baby color. So in this case, we diluted it with white paint. So that's a great trick when you're trying to dial in a tone, is you can ask the paint store to put in 25% or 50% white to kind of like move the hue a little bit. So in here we did this beautiful mantle that I just love so much. This was it was like a risky thing because, you know, just like with everything else in the house, I was trying to get the best price and, you know, work with the right people, but not like spend too much. And so the style of this mantle was something that I had, you know, tucked away. And I found this vendor in Ireland, and so they actually hand carved this. And you can see when you come up close that it doesn't have like the really perfect you know, lines as like a machine-made mantle would. And so you can see like the little chiseling, and it's all done by hand, and then they ship it in a box in, you know, in kind of pieces that go together. But I really love having this in the room, and you can see when you look at the room straight on, it's like totally symmetrical, that this is right in the middle, and then on one side you have a window, on the other side a matching door, and it's all meant to be super symmetrical, which is a design principle that I very much ascribe to, and I love symmetry and I love balance. So this room is meant to be a grown-up space that is focused on feeling, you know, at your best, feeling at ease, having a little feeling of almost being like in a hotel or being somewhere else, you know, not just being in the total routine humdrum day-to-day life. And I do come here in the morning to drink coffee. I love to have a few friends sitting in here and just like talking and having cocktails. It's really set up to be comfortable and have the focus be on either just like peace and quiet or have it be on conversation. I love France. That's like definitely one of my favorite countries, and I love just that aesthetic that's like a little bit feminine, a little softer, but very refined and structured at the same time. So one example of how I brought that in here would be these curtains. This rod is called a French pole, which is where it goes across and it curves back and goes back to the wall. It doesn't have finials. These curtains are chintz, and it's just a cotton. It just flows with the room. So you get, you know, curtains do a lot of things in your room that they kind of give you a very finished look, a very polished. They add softness and this kind of elegance and a sense of luxury, which obviously I'm going for in here with that whole vibe of like being somewhere better than the everyday. Again, in this French influence, it's very typical to have a large mirror over your mantle. In this case, I did like a little bit modernized version of that. This is, you know, this is a new mirror that has the curved corners. It's got a little modernity that way, but this surface is really interesting. It's called a glomise. And so that is when you take a piece of glass and you apply metal leaf to the back of it. So when you get up close, you can see all the little squares of silver leaf, and then they've, you know, antiqued it coming down. So the way that is done, which we have many other examples of here, is by applying acid, like an acid wash to kind of age. My original inspiration for this room was a room that was like way, way, way bigger than this one. Obviously, working in a space, I want to have a lot of flow. So that is something that I spend a lot of time on, doing the actual layout and kind of the relationship of everything to each other. Something that I love to have in a room that I think gives it like a really good sense of kind of grandeur is an oversized coffee table. This one, I just love this piece. I got it off of Cherish, and it's brass, it's vintage, and I eventually found out that this is actually a Carl Springer table. And so I was lucky that I picked it up when it didn't have the brand on it, but I had it once I realized who it was by, then I had it authenticated, and so that was kind of fun and exciting. But again, this is sort of like a 70s shape, so bringing it in this room, that is also a very French thing to do, that you could have these like old things and layers of old things and kind of like old-fashioned elements, but then adding on something that's very sleek and modern and kind of sexy. Then you're kind of bringing it full circle and having that modern vibe. Something else that I always do that's like kind of a basic principle of furniture is that you want to have a place where someone can put a drink down wherever they're sitting, so you need to have a table that's close enough for that. That was great, was I was kind of finding that I didn't have enough surfaces to put out little collections that I have and things like that. We had these shelves made to fit here, and it's a great place to just put kind of like little things that I like. I have a little collection of like Murano glassware. I love finding little artwork. I also love boxes. So it's just a place that I can display small things kind of all together. These chairs, I just love this shape. These are done in a striped velvet that in my career, one of my first big boss was Thomas O'Brien, and he's an unbelievable, multi-hyphenate designer who taught me so many things working in that office. And something that they used very frequently was a velvet like this that has, like the pile coming out, and then the stripe is flat, like canvas backing. And so he would often do one that was kind of like neutrals, like grays and like a cognac color. But this fabric was kind of like sentimental to me in a way, because it reminded me so much of the time I spent working there. And all the different chairs that we put it on. So when I saw this, I was like, that's great. And again, I love blue, and it's tonal. These chairs have a lot of really nice little details. There's a grosgrain ribbon right here with the nail heads on top. That's something else that came that, I learned working in that office, was all these little ways to use trim and kind of to just make things like that a little bit more fancy. So there's a few motifs that I always gravitate towards. One of them is clouds, and then another one is water. I think it's just a very restful, peaceful thing. And it's, in a way, it's kind of abstract, because it's just shapes, kind of moving. And obviously there's always going to be blue usually in any depiction of water or clouds. This is from a company, Wendover, that does, they're a place where you can order like 100 of the same picture to go in hotels and stuff like that. But they're really good to work with, because you can also order whatever size you want on the things. And I am a big believer in like a big, really substantial piece of art as like a way to create a moment on a wall. When we moved to Connecticut, we didn't know much about it, and we kind of just tested it out renting in Westport, and we did love the town. So then we spent some time looking around, and we kind of convinced ourselves that we wouldn't be able to find a house that had everything that we needed, so we wanted to build something. And obviously for me, being an interior designer for 20 years at that point, I had a huge amount of inspiration and kind of like dreams that I'd been having of what my home would be like. So fortunate as a designer to have the opportunity to actually create what I want, to start all the way at the beginning with the floor plan and the layout and planning all the windows and all that kind of thing that makes it what it is. And I love architecture. I'm not an architect, but I love all of that element of spatial planning and, making sure that there's a lot of symmetry. We worked with a really great architect, Michael Smith, who he and I really had similar philosophies around how things are supposed to look. And he's a great traditional architect working here in Norwalk. All right, so you can follow me into the dining room. So you can see this room has a very different vibe. It's got this deep, rich peacock blue that I love. People always admire this paint color. It's a great color for night to be in here with like low lights and candlelight. It's very like cozy. And it is a beautiful backdrop to art too. We have, some different things that we've collected in here. This artwork is actually from a piece that's in a museum in my hometown in Cody, Wyoming. My husband wanted this for a long time, and finally when I put it all together for him, I just love how it looks here. And it's got a really cool metaphor that this cowboy is running away from his shadow, and the piece is called Flight from Destiny. So it's kind of this concept that, you know, all of us try to get away from, like, you know, the negative side of us or the dark side or whatever, our fears. And you actually can't really get away from them because it's attached to you and it's your shadow. So the furniture is very spare. This table is like an Art Deco inspired shape, and it's a great table, and it can expand longer than this, so we can have tons of people in here. And then the chairs I got to do in different fabrics. So like if you look like the inside of this is a Pierre Frey outdoor fabric, which means that it's very like cleanable. And then I did this bottle green leather on the seat. And so leather's great for a dining seat because if you spill or whatever, it's like totally impervious. And then I did some contrasting things on the back. This fabric is by Fortuny. I love camo, and so it was just like a little small camo moment of this beautiful Italian print. In the dining room, when I'm not, you know, actively using it, I like to do some kind of like a sculptural, like little arrangement of objects. And so just some things that I've collected of like this green mirror ball. These are a little bit like an Art Nouveau look of the candlestick. And I love using either yellow or orange flowers in here that they, you know, pop with this color. I am half Cuban. My mother is a Cuban immigrant, and Cubans do cockfighting. And so the rooster is kind of like an animal that is very Cuban. In between New York and Westport, we lived in Tampa, where my mother lives, for a little over a year. And this was in a bar where they had, you know, art for sale that you could buy on the wall, and we kept on seeing it, and we would sort of be like, yeah, we should get that, we should get that. It works really well, this contrast of the yellow on the blue background. And so yeah, that's like a little bit of my heritage there. This light is it's a reproduction of a 1960s style. The brand was called Still Novo, and they are unbelievably influential in lighting because so many modern pieces are like, you know, taken from the styles that they originally did. What is really great about this light that I think is such a excellent type of lighting is when you have some kind of bowl or shape like this that is bouncing the light up to the ceiling. And so that just gives you this very diffuse light. It's very like a soft glow, and there's no glare. There's no like bulbs kind of shining at you. So this works really well in the evening, and yeah, it has like a little modern, playful kind of poppy style to it. So in this room, it ended up being kind of the same concept as the other room, that I got this beautiful chintz that is the same tone as the walls. And I did this a little differently, that this curtain has a puddle, so it's like a little bit romantic, and it kind of occupies more square footage. It sort of like takes up more space in the room. And then matching holes to the one in the living room, but this is in satin brass that goes with the light. Something else I would point out in this room is the paint. The trim is in a high gloss, but it's the same paint color. And so that's something, you know, interesting that you can do with paints, of using the same color in different finishes, and it changes the hue just ever so slightly, the different formula. So we're gonna head into the butler's pantry. This connects the dining room and the kitchen, so it's a very functional room, and I'll show you what's going on in here. So this comes in from the dining room and then goes to the kitchen. So you kind of have this connection point of where the food's coming from. We set this up to be a place that we can store a lot of things. I have this whole cabinet here where we have our glassware. There's a lot of nice drawers for like extra silverware. I did a stainless steel counter, thinking that this was going to be a place where people made drinks. No one ever does. We always do it on the kitchen island, but it's ultimately a place where I can kind of like put out things that I like and little art that I find. One of my favorite details is this glass. This is antique glass that was made for this project, and it was really kind of a big deal because the panels are so large. But a wonderful glass vendor that I work with here, she had it made, and someone actually like did it all by hand to a specification with like samples and things like that. So that obviously kind of like amplifies everything that's going on with the gloss paint and the wallpaper. I like to have, you know, different ferns and like a different plant matter and stuff like that. I have it all around in the house, including here. And then just different things that I collect for like arranging flowers, vases, containers, and styling pieces that kind of move around or come in and out depending on what's going on. Over here we have this whole cabinet that it's got contrasting color in the back that's like a dark turquoise, and the cabinetry in here was based on like an English style that's like an old-fashioned style. So you'll notice that there's no toe kick here. It goes straight down to the floor, and then just with the hardware like this little latch, the wine fridge is integrated in here so you kind of don't see it. And then this door here leads to the real pantry that we can store like all of our extra food and things like that. So this cabinet is great for glassware and things that are kind of fragile that you might want to put away. So we have, it's a little disorganized right now, but we have different kinds of wine glasses, different vases that I arrange flowers in, and then kind of different styling objects that could be like, these are some really pretty candlesticks that I bought for Thanksgiving once. I love stuff like this. Like this is like a vintage little, I don't know, I think it was like a prize, like a trophy or something. I picked this up in Hudson, New York. I pull from this when I'm doing different styling and flower arrangements and doing tabletop and stuff like that. So this leads into the kitchen, so we'll head in there. So you can see this room is all done in whites. This is Benjamin Moore White Dove. That's like a very classic choice that designers have been using forever, but it has a lot of other things going on in the finishes. So we have Belgian bluestone. The floor is like a black limestone that it's got like fossils and things in it. This is a really functional floor for us because it doesn't, it kind of hides dirt and crumbs and things like that. And I did one whole wall of white cabinetry. Then I have, as my base cabinets, I have this amazing limed oak finish. This was a whole thing to get this done, but the guy who ended up coming in to do it really knew what he was doing, and I just love this finish. And obviously we have different cabinetry styles also happening here. So the white cabinets are like one profile, the limed oak cabinets are another profile, and then this island, which is in a birch that's kind of like a honey or like a chestnut color, has a third cabinet style. So there's a lot of kind of subtle details in the cabinetry, but obviously in a kitchen, that's what you're working with instead of furniture. So this oven is Le Conche. This is a French company. It's actually like a super old company that has been in business for I think like 300 years, and the only time they closed was during the French Revolution. So all of the stuff they do is very analog. There's no like computer panels, although you can order induction stoves from them. So they do a great product that is kind of modular almost, that you could order a stove like this that's like 20 feet long, and it has like warming drawers and all these different ovens, all these different cooktops. You can customize it when you order it. It's made to order for you. So mine is kind of considered the beginner model. They consider black to be the beginner color because this stove, you can order it in literally any color that you want. When I went to their showroom, there was 2 pink, like baby pink stoves that someone had ordered. You can get green ones, blue ones, white ones. I think the white, like the off-white, the taupey cream, is a really cool choice. But they say that most people start with the black, that's also a little bit less expensive. and then they kind of graduate into the colors. All of these amazing chefs have these. Ina Garten, Jean-Georges Van Duyckten has one. Padma Lakshmi, her stove was there at the showroom when I toured with them. And yeah, it's just like has like obviously a very traditional look, and it's got the brass and the stainless steel and the enamel all happening together. And something else that is really functional about this for us is this surface here. It's cast iron, and this is called a French plate. So underneath here there is a burner that's like the biggest burner on the stove, but we literally never use that, but you use it almost like as your counter. So when you take something hot, you can put it right here, and it's like the perfect place to put something hot. But if I was actually a chef that could operate like 8 things at once, you could have like your chocolate melting here, and then you could have like all these other pots like going at the same time. So some other details here that are really subtle. The stone vendor that I worked with was this amazing woman who was like so passionate and so knowledgeable about stone. So she gave me this amazing idea that I'd never heard of, which was to do polished stone on the backsplash and honed on the counter. So when you take the same piece of stone, you know, you polish some of it and you hone some of it, you can see the difference that honing kind of gives you this like powdery, muted tones, where the polish brings the color more prominently, and it makes it, obviously it's like more like a glossy surface. So, and it's more cleanable. So that was a really good idea that she gave me on the backsplash. We did this hood that I was super happy how it came out, and this is lime washed. So that's a very, you know, something very subtle that may not come across on camera, but this is more like a powdery, earthy surface on the hood, you know, again, kind of layering in all these different finishes. The island, you know, it's supposed to be the concept of like a piece of furniture. There's some little details here with the way these columns come up, and they're like, you know, proud of this surface here. That's a little detail that I took from another amazing designer, Stephen Gambrell, that I really admire. In his kitchens are amazing. So, and then, you know, you can see this has like a little bit more rounded edges and surfaces, and the edge detail on the countertop is different from the eased edge that we did around. So hidden in here are most of my appliances. These doors open like this, and there's like a toaster / coffee station right there. This is the fridge. So we really hid everything. The only appliance that you can see is that stove. And I also obviously like very clean surfaces and not having like stuff everywhere. So some of our coffee makers and stuff like that are back in our other little pantry back there, or some of our other appliances here. But the way this kitchen is designed, it's not meant to have like too much stuff on the counters. Or on this side, you can see these cabinets go all the way down to the counter. This is another kind of like English, you know, thing that we incorporated. And then all of this is done super symmetrically, that you have like the same size drawers, then the same size smaller. This sink was something that my husband saw when we were out shopping for plumbing, and he really liked it. This type of sink is called a galley sink, and the idea is that you would be like literally chopping vegetables here and sweep them in. It comes with like accessories like this colander that you could theoretically wash lettuce in that, and then it's got these little like sliding surfaces. So we mostly use this as like a drying rack to put stuff away that's drying. But I do really believe in a big, deep sink. Having a sink that's like extra deep really makes a difference when you're kind of, you know, clearing away dirty dishes and stuff like that. You put them in the sink and they kind of disappear if the sink is super deep. So I always recommend that to clients, to get one that's on the deeper side for that reason. It just kind of feels cleaner when it's full. These pendants, I was down at High Point at the furniture market, and I saw these. It's a store called Bobo Interesting Objects, I want to say it's called. The scale ended up working perfect, and just the way they light up, I really love. The most challenging part of this was the engineering, and Westport has very, very strict codes around slopes and things like that, and so that was truly like a mind melter trying to do that. However, because we had that really steep slope that the lot kind of goes like this and then it just falls away and goes down, that was very, very tricky to get it passed with the town. But it's also what makes the back of our house really dramatic, and it has a lot of it has drama because we have like our deck coming out and then far below the pool, and we have a lot of stairs that were involved with that. So it ended up being really, really cool, but that was a part that was painful to deal with and have to do many iterations and redrawings and hiring all sorts of different experts to get that done. But now we love it, and it's a great place to entertain, and people love coming to our pool in the summer. And then inside the house, I think both the kitchen and this living room were rooms that I thought so much about. A kitchen obviously is a very complicated room. It has all different functions that need to be fulfilled. You have a lot of appliances. You have all the different trades coming in there, and it's obviously the heart of the home and where people always gather around when we entertain. They're all clustered around the island. So our kitchen came out perfect. It's something that I visualize so much in my mind, trying to put it together and think about, how the different finishes were going to play off each other. And yeah, it's very classic. I love just like very clean but classic looks and within traditional architecture. So we definitely got that. That worked out perfectly. Then this room that we're in is definitely my favorite room. Again, I was super lucky that my husband did not interfere with me trying to do something that's very feminine, very pastel. I love blue. There's a lot of different blues in the house, as you'll see. And this one ended up being this like monochromatic kind of super pale robin's egg blue. And I love sitting in here. I love when I can pull people in here to have some drinks, and I definitely use it. I have coffee in here. I read. We use all of the house. So that's something that I'm very happy that we don't have rooms that are just kind of like stale and no one ever sets foot in them. We actually do use them all, and we love to entertain. So whether it's, a couple friends or a big party, we love having them here, and the house is really organized for being able to do that in different settings and different kind of formats. So that's very fulfilling for me. So behind the kitchen, we have the mudroom. So this connects to the kitchen there, and then on that side it connects to the garage. So this was planned very intentionally to be in this location because it's very functional as kind of like a drop zone, and unloading groceries or bringing things in, you go straight in there. I also love having this extra space for like Amazon boxes or things that need to go away. You could kind of have them staged here. So in here we did this really pretty green color. We have shiplap on the walls and a little ledge here. You can see I did a gallery wall here along the top and then painted out the crown in the same green. This floor, I really like this floor, and it's also super functional because it's porcelain, but it looks like wood, and it's in this pattern with an X. You'll see in a lot of the rooms that have tile on the floor, there's all sorts of different geometric patterns going on. I love blue, but I also love green. And this green, it's called Colonial Verdigris. And it has it's very rich, and it has like some yellow in it. So it's a warm green that looks great with wood. And so also painting the room this way with having the white dove up top, and this, leads up a staircase where the walls are white dove. So that's a nice way to kind of cut the intensity of a really strong color that you could kind of balance it out with some white on the top. It also draws attention to the millwork because it's only the wood that's painted out in the green, and then the walls are in the white. On the lights, I did some brass sconces that you could see are like a modern shape with like a nice glow, a soft glow. And then the pendants here are vintage from a factory, and so they're kind of like beat up and they have the shade. And so that's something, bringing something old into the room, alongside some of our different collections of, art that represents places that we've traveled or kind of like family history. There's some Wyoming things up here. And this also is a second doorway into the house. There's a side door. This door, This is like more of a technical thing, but this is something I would recommend to anyone. It's a keypad, and you can see I painted this door blue, so our side door is blue, and then this way we never have to have a key. We can just use this little thing to lock up. So that's really good, and now the kids know the code too. Now we're going to go upstairs to my primary bedroom. So here we are in my bedroom. This hallway coming in from, you know, the main hallway, this is like our little suite here. This was all planned as a way that there could be a lot of privacy, and also if someone has to leave on a business trip in the morning, that he could like come out of here, and then there's doors to like shut it off so that you can prevent noise from traveling around. And then this hallway has this beautiful paneling, and this is all done in high gloss, you know, slightly different tone from this. But I love that kind of transition where you're coming from a space that's like more tight and, you know, lower ceiling, and then you come out into the space where the volume blows up, that it kind of gives you a little more drama that way. So in this space, I wanted to have high ceilings and, you know, some drama in the ceiling height. So we figured that out and have a really nice, huge, beautiful window looking out to the back. One of the really special pieces in this room is the chandelier. This is an antique that came out of a hotel. It's got rock crystals, and it's just really pretty. It's actually gotten kind of tarnished. It's silver. In this room, we wanted something really calm and soothing and peaceful. So this paint color is sea pearl. It worked really well. It's just kind of like soft and really neutral, but it still has some warmth. So again, with the theme of having traditional elements mixed with modern, I have a very modern bed that's got curves, and, you know, it's like a very simple plain form. It's a kind of oyster velvet. And I love this type of bed that has the little wings that come here. It's called the shelter style. So it just kind of like comes around you. These nightstands are new, but they again have those sort of like deco inspirations. And then over here, this is a very special piece to me that was my great grandmother's that I was able to get and then have it redone with new fabric and a new, you know, some little tape trim details. But that's really nice, you know, if you have an heirloom that you can kind of like zhuzh it up and freshen it up and make it nicer and use that again in your house. I love being able to do that. These curtains are great because this rod is motorized, and you know, when you have like a really big window like this, opening and closing the curtains, it's sort of like a whole project. And so I like to recommend doing a motorized rod if you have a situation like that. Or I think they really lend themselves to bedrooms because, you know, all of us are obviously rushing around in the morning, and if you have to manually open and close every curtain, then you just won't do it, and you'll just kind of leave them shut and have your room be dark all the time. And so with a motorized rod, you could just use a remote control and it opens and closes it for you. It's definitely a luxury, but I do think I'm glad that we invested in that. This room has an unusual crown detail. If you look, that since obviously the ceiling is sloped, this crown, it doesn't attach onto the ceiling. It forms like a little step around. So all of this detailing was like very carefully studied, of course. I ended up getting this mirror when we were photographing the house for a local publication here at home, and I needed to kind of like finish up any blank areas. And this is like a bullseye mirror. It's a federal style that normally this mirror would have been in black and gold, and it's sort of like a colonial looking thing. But somewhere along the way, someone had painted it with gesso, and so that makes it more like modern and cleaned up. And it's just fun because it really reflects the whole room when you're standing here. And, you know, I like mirrors, so now I have a convex one in my collection. I would say, as far as, you know, a primary bedroom that people most gravitate towards something that's soothing and calming. There have been times I've put together more colorful schemes that we end up not moving forward with because it just doesn't, set the tone for you to be rested and kind of calm. And your bedroom obviously is a place, it's like really the retreat where you can just be alone and be most yourself and just have piece. And so I think it makes a lot of sense to do it in that kind of a palette. This rug that I found, I was so happy when I was able to find this because it was like the perfect size. And then, it's got the traditional motifs on the rug, but they're all done in these muted, more modern, soft colors. That was a good find. These windows are super nice. The company is called Norwood, and it was recommended to us by our architect. And so this type of window is called the casement window, that you turn this and then it pushes out like that. And they actually have this really unusual feature that the screen comes down that way. And so that's kind of cool. But yeah, this type of window is, it's very elegant and beautiful. So then we have a room that, it's not to everyone's taste but this is one of my favorite colors. I absolutely love this color. And this is my dressing room. This is like my little private place, and one of my favorite colors is periwinkle, so I found this amazing blue for the cabinetry, and it was definitely a risk. And it's also something that I thought about not doing. I thought about maybe doing this gray tone that is on the walls on the cabinetry, but I remember when I saw it going up and the painter was working on it, and I was just like, wow, that is truly me to have this color. And obviously this is a room I come in every single day to get dressed. So I'm not like super into clothes, so I didn't emphasize so much clothing storage, but I have like these two towers here that I have shoes in there, and then there's sort of like folded stuff there. And then in between is this mirror that I set up like very much as kind of like Hollywood style, or like a store style, that you actually get a lot of light on you when you're trying to look at yourself. And then likewise inside the cabinetry, there's strip lighting. So those of us who are a little bit older know that you stop being able to see if something is like navy or black. And so with this light, I can see exactly what I'm looking at, or like if something is like not presentable to be worn. And then there's like different little, collectibles and things. Like this is a piece of art that my husband has always hated, but this is something that I picked up in my college days that just like really reminds me of that time. And it was like such a distinct style of where I was living in California. And then I have these different kind of like pieces of hardware that I got in my travels that, it's just for fun and for decoration. But this is an amazing thing that is really nice to have. This is called a valet rod. And so you see it like telescopes in and out of the wall. So this is a thing that when you're planning an outfit, or if you're like going to be traveling, then you can kind of pull it out and start hanging stuff that you want to have there. It's super useful. On this wall, I did something different, that I wanted it to be something modern. And also at that point, we were like at the end of our construction, which by that point you're like so sucked dry of all your money and patience, and like you just don't have anything left to give. And I needed something fast too, and I don't want to spend money. So this is actually IKEA. These drawers are like the kitchen. I forgot what exactly it's called, but they come as like a white melamine, and it's all modular that you can like choose different sizes. So then I made a little bit of a mistake that I found this wrapping paper that was really beautiful, but wrapping paper is not meant to have sun on it the way wallpaper is, and so it got kind of washed out, but it has this cool kind of like astrology theme, gold like moons and stars on it. And then I put these nice handles and had this top made for it that's mirror. And so this is like a very glamorous surface to have like makeup on and jewelry. And then of course I have all my little photos of my loved ones, my grandmothers. And then on the wall here, these sconces are like so beautiful, and I love the light. These are by Kelly Wearstler. And so each of these shades is alabaster. That's, you know, a real stone. So it's like each one is, you know, one of a kind of how the veining is. In a perfect world, when you're planning a mirror wall with sconces, you really want to choose your mirror up front and plan it all out at the same time. In this case, I had already had these sconces installed, and then I was like racking my brain trying to figure out what mirror should be, but then I found this one and it ended up being perfect, that it kind of like sits in there really nicely. And so yeah, this is like my fun little makeup and like hair area. And then this light fixture is super cute. This is a, you know, like a reproduction of a 60s style Murano kind of disc chandelier. And it's just really fun with the colors in here, because obviously I like pastels, but you just don't get to use them appropriately that many places. But a room like this is obviously a woman's room, and we use it so much that my kids come in here and like lay on the floor and like bother me when I'm trying to get ready. And it's like more than a closet, you know, that it is actually a room that I just like come in, or sometimes I end up in here with a friend, just like talking or whatever. So back down this hallway is our bathroom. So this is our master bathroom, and in this room you definitely see the whole deco moment happening. One of my really favorite details is this panel on the tub. So the fabricator that we worked with on the marble was super skilled. He took the marble slab and then laminated it onto some quartz for extra strength, and then carved this whole panel out. So you see it's like recessed there. All of the fittings are very, you know, traditional 20s style plumbing. And that was actually a period when plumbing became a thing that everyone had. So it's like kind of historical. Mirror is gorgeous. It is silver leaf. So this was made to order, obviously, for this room. And it's got this like soft swoop that comes across, and then you can see all the metal leafing that's hand applied. The sconces, these are really good sconces that are LED. I really like the light quality, but again, they have that Art Deco kind of shape. And then the vanity was inspired by a Belgian bathroom that I saw, that they had this thing that it was sort of like a floating vanity, but it was traditional. And so you see we have these legs, that the legs are not structural, but it's just like a, you know, design detail. And then another thing that really has worked out well in this bathroom is this counter. And this is a surface that you don't see that often. It's glass. It's like a milk glass. It's called nano glass. So this is really good for a bathroom, because obviously glass does not stain. It doesn't get marked by things, you know, so you could have chemicals or whatever kind of beauty products on this and it's fine. And then we have great storage. This medicine cabinet, it's very deep. It has a mirror in the back, and then it has like adjustable glass shelves. And then in this cabinet, this one's actually recessed back into this space, and so it has tons of depth. So we have, you know, storage that we could need there. This floor was something that I had seen that, again, my tile saleswoman helped me with to put these together, but you can see how it's kind of like almost like an MC Escher effect of being deep, like these holes that are actually three-dimensional. Of course, the floor is flat, but it's another geometric floor that I have in the house. And then the other important detail is the trim is all out of the same stone as the bathtub. And so this wraps around all the door jambs and the baseboard and goes all the way around the room. And then we put in this nice pretty window as like the backdrop to the tub. And you can see again the whole like symmetry, that this all lines up perfectly with the center of this, and then it's like equal on both sides, and it's just very pleasing and harmonious to the eye. It feels, you know, it feels good when you see that. Yeah, this home is a very special place for us. It definitely represents accomplishment that is a culmination of, all of the work that my husband and I have done leading up to this. This is the first home that we ever owned. That's something that I think we're both very proud of. And then, as far as our family, this is our kids were not born here, but this is the only home that they remember. And so it's a place that we all feel, comfortable, and kind of like it's our home base in every way, of whether this is like the community that our kids are being raised in, it's the school that we go to, it's our neighbors, and all of our friends that are around this home that kind of make the feeling of what it is. It also kind of represents like this truly adult chapter of our life where, up until we lived here, we were way more, in a different phase, that we're renters. We didn't have any obligation really. We could like move here or move there. We didn't have that much attachment to the houses that we lived in, And so this is very different, that it's like our place that, we really identify with, and that it's obviously all customized to what we wanted and expresses our taste all the way from the top to the bottom. Being able to actually do many rooms that are all exactly what I wanted from a creative standpoint and a self-expression standpoint, that's like the only thing that you ever really wanted as a designer, is to create these beautiful rooms where your vision is really coming to life. So super exciting from a creative point of view.